welcome once again to Leader Talk, the CNN-IBN special where we discuss leadership mantras with leaders from the corporate world and sporting icons. Joining us on Leader Talk today, two very special guests. Very privileged to be joined by the former India football captain Baichung Bhutia, and also joining us Michael Perschke, head of Audi India. Appreciate both of you joining us here on Leader Talk. I'm going to start with you, Baichung, because in many ways over the last decade and more, you've been the face of Indian football, but more importantly, perhaps the first superstar in sports produced by the Northeast. Does that, in a sense, give you a greater leadership role, some kind of a burden? Has it been some kind of a burden on you that you've got to live up to the pressures and the hopes and aspirations of not just football fans, but even the people of the Northeast?
I don't see it as been a burden. In fact, it's been a great honor representing people of Northeast, and I think football is such a big in Northeast, and coming out from there and playing it in India and making it big in football, I think it gave a lot of hope for a lot of youngsters from Northeast, and also that identity of Northeast being part of India was very, very important, I felt, because every time you go back to places like Manipur, Nagaland, or Mizoram or Sikkim, a lot of people who don't come out of these areas, who don't step out of Sikkim, Nagaland, Manipur, feel that they've been left out of the mainstream India. So I think it's important that some people from Northeast made it to the national level and made a name mark of it. And I think that brings in a lot of nationality within people who've not been out of Northeast as well.
That's an interesting point, because after you've had boxers now, the Mary Coms of the world, the Shiv Thapas, you've got footballers coming in from Manipur. In a sense, it's almost like a revolution has been created in sport. How important do you think sport has been for the people of the Northeast to, assert in a self their identity? Because otherwise they've often complained of alienation, of being cut off from the mainstream. Has sports and leadership in sports played an important role, you think?
I think it's played a major role for the Northeast people, especially in sports, because if you name any leaders in political leaders or maybe corporate leaders, we've had very few. But I think past a decade or so, amount of sports person that's made big mark in India in a national level has been big. So I think sports in Northeast is a big for everyone, from every kid to parents to every citizen in Northeast, because sports is something which everybody wants to play, and especially football and other sports as well. So I think sports play a major role, and I think that's how we've been able to. But we would like to see a lot of big political names and corporate names coming out of Northeast. But at the moment, I think sports is something which
it could be a stepping stone. The Mary Coms and the Baichung Bhutias are now inspirations in the Northeast. In a sense, Michael, for you also, there's a bit of a burden, I would say, of leadership, in the sense, the expat Indian. Do you have to prove, when you come to a country like India, that look, we can assimilate, we can be leaders in an entirely different work culture? How difficult was that? And did you also, in a sense, have some kind of a burden somewhere subconsciously that I've got to prove myself a bit more?
I think it's both. You get a little bit of credit, because sometimes people say, oh, he's a foreigner, so give him a little bit of breathing space. Also, I think my advantage was it's my second stay in India. So I stayed in India from 97 to 2000. So I was not completely blank when it came to certain things in India. And I think one of the key messages I can give any expat coming to India trying to prove himself: if you don't love India, if you're not passionate about the country and the job you're doing here, and you just see it as a stint of your career, don't do it.
What was the most difficult thing? As an expat Indian coming to lead an Indian company, what was the most difficult adjustment that you had to make?
I think at the beginning, coming from the perfect structured German world, accepting that sometimes you don't need 110% to go for it. Sometimes to work with a bit of Indian ambiguity and accept 85-90%, what you can plan, and leave a 10-15%, to praying to the gods and hoping things fall into place and having the luck of people who work hard. I think you need to readjust to the Indian system, but sometimes some of my Indian friends say I'm more Indian than some Indians are, especially when it comes to my way of driving and some other skill sets.
So you've started, the best way to adjust to India is drive an Audi the Indian style.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's one thing to do. But, Baichung, captaining a football team or being the sole superstar of an Indian football team, how much of pressure was that? Because look, there's a lot of fan following for football. It's growing all the time, but the Indian national team is nowhere in the world rankings. It's unlike cricket. In a sense, a cricketer is being judged by world standards. A footballer, perhaps not. How do you then motivate yourself? How do you motivate yourself when you know that we are not international class players? How do you motivate a football team or indeed yourself?
So I think for me, if through my experience, what I felt as a footballer is you feel more frustrated. There are moments when you travel, and I think it's also got to do with the Indian culture as such within us, and especially sports person here in India, I think, and mostly the footballers. I think when they travel abroad, when they see the infrastructure kind of facilities, they don't come back and speak out. When there's a lot of injustice being done to the players, and the players who are playing for the national teams are the big names, they don't speak out. And they always try to respect elders or the federations or the sports associations, associations.
You think non-cricket sports persons are scared almost of the sports federation to speak out? Even if you are a superstar, you think twice before taking on the establishment in a non-cricket sport.
Yes, I think one of the reason is they are scared. Other reason is because I think most of them come from humble background, and also because our culture is respect elders or respect somebody, and they've not been, in our culture, I think Indian culture, we're not outspoken and we don't revolt.
That's an interesting point to take to you, Michael, because look, Audi is a global brand. How do you then set the German standards for an Indian company? I mean, how do you tell Indians that, look, you've got to benchmark yourself increasingly to global standards?
If you just stand there and preach it, it's not going to happen. What you need to make sure is that people experience these global standards themselves, live, somewhere abroad. They understand what it means, what is a brand all about, we experience the customer, and then come back and put it into an Indian context. But it doesn't work from a PowerPoint presentation or from a book. It's really like you need to do some edutainment.
Because how do you raise the bar? The big question, whether it's in corporate world or in sports. Let's, look at sport, and a sport like football, followed across the world for years. For us, sports was East Bengal versus Mohun Bagan. Now suddenly we get a chance to see Bayern Munich, you get to see the best teams in the world in the Premier League. How difficult is it now to get, or even your players, to start accepting that they need to start raising the bar?
The most important thing in India, what we really lack, is the support system to make them a better player when they start playing at the age of, say, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we don't have that support system to bring them, and when they're 17, 18 and ready to go break into national team or break into the professional football, they've not gone through that basic training, proper infrastructure, proper youth development program, and that's where I think the biggest problem with Indian football is at the moment.
Is there an issue of professionalism? Do you believe that professionalism in general in the work culture, is it changing? Have you seen change? You've been here for several years. Have you seen a dramatic change in the work culture, in the manner in which people are willing to be more and more professional in the way they deal with, let's say, time management, for example? Because we are moving away now from Indian standard time, hopefully, to global standard times when it comes to work delivery.
I think coming first to professionalism, and where we said, how do you get global standards? I think it all starts with talent selection. And I think that's where Baichung and Audi, where we're doing exactly the same. You need to look for people who are intrinsically motivated. If you find those people who have that killer instinct, I think we remember back when we've been with FC Bayern for the youth scouting in Calcutta. And some of the talent scouts, including Paul Breitner, said, look, some of these kids, in their eyes, they have still that killer instinct. You don't find in Europe anymore, because they're all well fed, they live with a golden or silver spoon. You find that in Brazil, you find that maybe in India, in some parts of Africa. And I think you need the same when you look for people in a corporate world. Do they have that killer instinct? If you get the killer instinct, everything else is just polishing. You cannot make, a dead horse run like an Arabian horse. You have an Arabian horse, you just need to guide it.
I've also wondered, Baichung, that in a sport like football, great team sport at the end of the day, do you set yourself as a leader individual goals or a team goal? Over the years, was it more important for you to score a goal or for the team to win? Honest answer, particularly when you knew that you were this larger-than-life football player. Was it important for Baichung to score, or was it important for your team, whether national team or club team, to win?
For me, honestly speaking, it had always been team to win, but I would always want to score if, with that goal, the team to win. But being a football, being a team game, I think it's always important that you have to have a team. You need the team to win, irrespective of whether I score or not. But being a striker, I would always wanted to score, and obviously always when you score you don't win as well, but there are a lot of times when I score we won as well. But as a football player, as a team game, I think the important factor was for the team to win.
I've often wondered, Michael, many say that's the big difference between India and Germany, whether it's in sport or in the corporate world. Germany has always built the notion of a team ethic. India has always been much more individualistic. It's always about that individual sports star. How do you change that on the shop floor? How do you get a team in an Indian corporate to work as a team and not simply about individual achievements?
I think it's not easy, but at the same time, I think that's kind of one of the silver bullets you have. I think we achieved a #1 spot this year in our industry, not because I individually did a great job. I'm in the same position as him, owning the team. You cannot run fast and leave the team behind. You need that the team is in sync with you. And my team is not only the people working in my office, but it's all my dealers. I think the most critical issue is how do you get that sense of belonging and ownership to one common objective. So in his world, it's probably running for the national championship. And how does every single player and everybody who supports the team underwrites it and lives for it? And in my space, it's the same. How do you get everybody underwritten with blood, not just with water?
Has that been a struggle to build a team culture in Indian sport, in a sport like football?
I, as a leader, when I was a captain, I made sure that we play for the team and we work as a team. Despite no matter who scores, whatever the result, I think the team comes first, and that's what in 11 years of my captaincy, that was one thing which I always tried putting it down to my players and to making it the team comes first, individual second.
Okay, on that note, let me take a break because there's plenty more to talk about on Leader Talk with Michael Perschke and Baichung Bhutia. Back in a moment. You're watching Leader Talk on CNN-IBN. Welcome back once again to Leader Talk, this CNN-IBN special where we bring sports icons and corporate leaders on one platform. With us, of course, Baichung Bhutia, former India captain, and Michael Perschke, head of Audi India. Baichung, you've achieved so much on the football field, but off it now, after retirement, you're doing remarkably. You've got your own football team, United Sikkim, which has now reached the first division. You've got a football academy that you're building, and you seem to be someone who's deeply involved with the game even after retirement. How important as a leader do you think it is to give back to the sport that has given you so much? Particularly Sikkim, how important was it to go back to Sikkim in a sense and give back to sport in your home state?
Huge challenge, because when I just retired international football, I was still playing professional football with I was still playing with East Bengal then, and I decided I met nice people who are co-owners of United Sikkim Federal as well, people from Dubai, and we thought of forming one team and we wanted to start up in Sikkim, and it was a huge challenge because I still was a professional player, and I thought why not, because Northeast we hardly have a big professional club. We had Shillong Lazong then, and we needed few more clubs to come in. And United Sikkim was a great opportunity that came in my way. So it was a big challenge because Sikkim is a very small state. In terms of corporate world, we hardly have anything. In terms of sponsorship, we struggle. In terms of reaching out and getting to Sikkim is a big challenge. So it was a big challenge, which I knew it is going to be difficult, but it was something that we the club itself, United Sikkim, I just didn't want to think it only for the Sikkim, but entire Northeast as well, to make sure that people of Northeast gets one club, professional club, which one day would go on to become one of the big clubs in India.
That's the United Sikkim story is a great story in a way, but Michael, in the corporate world, is how important is for a company like ours, or indeed for you, corporate social responsibility? There's a lot of talk of CSR. But is it at the end of the day about the bottom line, about making Audi the most profitable company in the country? Was that the #1 goal? How important is corporate social responsibility of giving back to the society around you?
Well, I think you cannot be successful without putting your roots into the ground and become also a bit of local. being a pure MNC, just coming in with a hit and runaway success doesn't work. You need to build a sustainable story. So I would say you have a lot of stakeholders. My direct stakeholders are, first of all, my employees and their families. So you need to pay good salaries, you need to look after them, you need to educate them, give them perspectives in life. The next extended range are the dealers and all the people who are at the dealer level. We have a lot of dealers who do a lot of CSR, whether they give equal working opportunity rights for deaf and blind, who have some jobs where we can help them. And then the next layer is where you go out and meet students and give them perspectives to work for a corporation, but help them doing traineeships. And then you go out and do things like what we did, a tournament with Baichung and FC Bayern, where we also, some of the proceeds will go back, where Baichung will help us to develop talents. So you need to work on all parts of your stakeholder society. As an MNC coming to India, you need to understand that CSR in India plays a different context than back in Europe or maybe in the US. And you need to find that right act, being profitable on one hand side, but being also responsible.
You know, I'm just wondering, maybe as a footballer, do you feel sometimes that the corporate world doesn't do enough for football?
I definitely yes, because I as a footballer always feel that I think the corporate world is not doing much for the game itself. And I can give you a biggest example of my own football club, United Sikkim Football Club. I've started this club, putting everything on leaving my, professional career and playing in second division when I started as well, and build the club. And there's something which obviously the club, if it can grow and become number one, is going to help. My main intention is to do, good for Indian football. I have my Baichung Bhutia football schools for the last 5 years. We've got 800, 900 students all across India. And we're just trying to tie up with one corporate world to come and support and sponsor, because out of 800, 900 kids, we want to select the best 50 kids and put them into a proper academy. And when we have under 17 World Cup through Baichung Bhutia Football Academy, I want at least 7-8 players playing there. But just getting a corporate sponsor for my football schools and for United Sikkim is a big nightmare.
That's right. Maybe a dream one day is to get one of them to play for Bayern Munich. But, on that note, Michael, let me just turn away from there to work-life balance. How important is that? You come to India, to an environment entirely different to yours. How important was it to strike a work-life balance to, yes, you've got your work in the office, but life beyond it? Is that important for a corporate leader, particularly in an Indian environment, especially when you come from abroad?
I think, first of all, absolutely, it's important. But Indian working culture is much more engaging than being back in Germany, for example. First of all, my working day actually doesn't end at 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock. Basically, the second shift starts, because once you leave office, you have a lot of obligations for social representation, whether it's a lounge, whether it's a media event. As much as he's invited, for one or the other occasion, I have to represent my brand. And that's where also the Indian working culture, people spend much more time naturally at the office, so you have to break that. And probably I didn't enjoy, or I didn't take enough work-life balance. I realized because I loved my job so much, and I had that challenge to go for that number one. So yeah, you have to strike a balance.
I'm going to ask you, Baichung, in conclusion, because people don't just see you as a footballer today. I have seen you on dance shows. You've been dancing in reality shows. You're doing football commentary. You're, I see you outside the football world as well, at fashion shows. You seem to be someone who enjoys life, right? Life yes. For you is not just football.
I think it is important, for a sports person, especially in India, and if trying to compete with, with cricket or Bollywood, then I think it's important that footballers have to come out of just playing football and be in the media in terms of, being into, not the reality show, but I think either in fashions or social events, because I think it's important that we need to have more superstars in football, because individually I think that football is going to benefit, but it's going to benefit the player, but on the whole I think it's going to motivate a lot of youngsters, a lot of kids to go and take up the game, and a lot of parents to put their kids and give them an opportunity to become a professional footballer and make a career out of playing football.
Okay, 15 seconds each. If there was one tip, Michael, that you'd like to give any expat leader who wants to come to India to work in an Indian environment, what would that one tip, what is that one mantra for succeeding in an Indian work environment?
Always look at the glass being more than half full than half empty.
Always look at the glass being half full and not half empty. Baichung, what's that one tip that you'd give all those aspiring youngsters who maybe want to become footballers today and not cricketers?
I think I would like to give it to, rather than the young ones, the experience who's made big in Indian sports, to speak out for the betterment of sports person and sports facilities in India, because if they don't speak out, the younger generation is not going to get that. So I think you should not be scared. If there is something which you feel that it's right for Indian sports and betterment of Indian sports, only the sports person, if they can speak out, then it's going to change.
Baichung Bhutia, Michael Perschke, both of you joining us here on Leader Talk. Thank you so much. That was another episode of Leader Talk where we shared mantras of successful leaders. Thanks very much for watching. Goodbye.